You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, and Martin Luther in Laboni says that the president's response, can we go to some other subject, was clear. Everyone should, and it's a lot. Okay. F.O. Newton in Mankraso says the NPP is now struggling to retrieve the 51 million from Woyome. The mantra they used in opposition appears as if they will come and retrieve it on the same day that the president is sworn in as president. The African court has spoken. Our Supreme Court has also spoken. The two decisions are parallel. It will be very interesting. Alhaji Iliasu says that in Tamale, says that won't Woyomi pay this money and stop the communist inferior tactics against the nation? What legacy does he want to leave for his children? Didn't he admit on live radio that he had no contract with the state? The AG must partly be blamed for the delay in implementing the valuation and confiscation of his properties. Ata Imoro in Wallency says that what at all does Woyomi take Ghanaians for? What was he thinking when he started paying the refund? So what has changed? The blow that is yours must be received without delay, and so must he pay without delay. Okay, Julius Agahoha in Asawasi. Okay, your message is truncated, but thank you very much. Thank you, because most of you, that's what you're wondering, that he himself initiated the process to pay after, you can say voluntarily, and I put voluntarily in quotes because he had come under immense pressure after a while, and suddenly, after paying the first tranche of 4 million, he's, as it were, p-footing on paying it. Some of you are surprised about that, and those are the messages you are sending in. And also, some of you suggest, like this one here, about the fact that in support of Dr. Etia and co, and their positions that they have expressed, that Ghana has been a part of the Africa Union, and also the court. Our Chief Justice was Vice President and was President at a point. Okay, so what is that supposed to say? Thank you very much. Now, okay, I'm laughing because it just showed me something. It's laughable because the tags that we put on our guests, somehow, I think when it was on Inusa, the cameras moved onto Ace, and the name was still there, Inusa Hussein.
I take it. Please, thank you very much for getting your seat up to me. I appreciate that. I hope the room accepts me as their MP.
Okay, so let's go to Libya quickly, and like I was asking whether we can bring in more people. We have brought in 100 and is it 27 people. We estimate that there's a lot more that we are supposed to bring in Ghana, but unfortunately, like the Foreign Affairs Minister said, you know, in the rogue states, we are unable to access them. We only got these people from Tripoli. So what happens to the other places where it's rumored that some Ghanaians are still there? What are we going to do about that? I start with you, the Honorable Yusuf Seni. What do you make of the situation, and are we really going to be able to win the war against the quote-unquote modern-day slave trade happening in Libya?
Well, I think that basically the focus has been on Libya, but the focus should be in the Maghreb region, and particularly in the little after Burkina Faso, Niger, Mali, Chad, and those areas. Because you see, in the Arab Maghreb, you have the Al-Qaeda and other terrorist forces operating there, and they need to fund their activities. And part of the way through which they fund their activities is taking people and either maltreating them or taking their monies from them. Initially, the reports that we had, the reports that we had from people traveling to Libya on foot was that they were always robbed of their possessions and let to go. And some died in that process because even water is a scarce commodity, so people carrying water had their water taken away from them. Now, what is happening clearly is that because the Al Qaeda and other forces, I understand ISIS, ISIS is also operating there. So what they found a fertile ground to carry out their activities, and that's why there's this report about slave trading activities. Clearly, there are push factors and there are pull factors involved in this, and the European Union has been working with African countries, ACP countries, to ensure that they stem the tide of migration, illegal migration, to Europe through these dangerous and hazardous routes. Migration cannot be stopped. Migration is more than 1 million years. I mean, people have moved. We are all here because we migrated from somewhere. I mean, all of us in Ghana, we moved here. Our ancestors and forebears moved here in search of better opportunities. Indeed, Europe is populated by people who have their ancestry in Africa. I mean, they moved there. Their ancestors more or less moved there because of better opportunities. People will continue to move because of better opportunities. And that's why the United Nations High Commission on Refugees has made a distinction between refugees and migrants. Migrants being those who move out for economic reasons. And insofar as we are unable to fix our economics, people will continue to move. Even internally, I mean, we have KIA. That's migration. They come from the poorer regions of this country into places where they think that they can make a living. Except that here, they still living in deplorable conditions. I mean, rent is high for them, and so they are living at Agogoloship. Conditions are not good for them. But that's migration. That's a pull and push factor that has resulted in people living in areas within even our country, which clearly can be equated to some form of slavery. And so, for me, I think that what we have to do, and as a country, is to try to fix our economy, provide employment for our people.
Thank you.
And then they will stop. We are not the only country in Africa. I mean, you don't normally hear people from Kenya involved in. I mean, anytime you hear the report, and in 2015, 3,771 people died in the Mediterranean while trying to cross into Europe. They gave a breakdown. You don't hear the names of some countries. Why?
They are too far.
you understand? And coming back to Libya, why are we talking about Libya? In the Arab Maghreb region, we have about 4 or 5 countries which can grant you access to the southern part of Europe.
It's the shortest distance.
Oh, the shortest actually is Morocco.
And then there's Italy, which has a more receptive attitude.
Yeah, so
if you're going to Morocco, why are you going to stop at?
Well, you go to Morocco, Rabat, you go to Rabat, and from Rabat you go to those islands.
Yes,
and then
those are you go there.
Why is that so? Tunisia, you go to Tunisia. Tunisia is just sharing boundary with Libya, and when you are in Tunisia, you can cross into Europe. You go to Algeria. You can cross. The farthest actually is Egypt. That will take you to Asia. Okay, now, but Egypt, if you want to go to Israel, you cross. I mean, they have a tunnel even that sends you to Israel. Why is it that people do not find comfort or they don't find space to operate in those areas? Because we have governments to maintain law and order.
Yeah, but
yes,
but Libya has always had that attraction.
No,
when
Gaddafi was there, they had that.
I have a friend who went through
it. They had that. They went through that. But you never saw mass exodus of people leaving Libya for Europe. No, you never saw it. I mean, it was very difficult to do that. It was even very difficult to enter Libya. Those who even went on foot, they had to always wait in the night. The accounts that we had, they had to wait in the night and sneak into Libya in the dark of the night. But now, the impunity is too much. Now, the Libyan ambassador has issued a statement, and that's very telling. He says they will want to know whether the activities that are being reported. Now, first of all, we must be skeptical about those reports, and that they will want to know whether the activities that the media is reporting on, I mean, were carried out in the UN recognized, I mean, UN-backed government-recognized area or something like that. Meaning, even in Libya, there are areas that the arm of government, the recognized government, does not reach.
Sure.
So what happens? Where people are acting with impunity, what will you do? What can you do? So I'm not surprised that government is saying that, I mean, or the state is saying that there are people in other areas in Libya who are beyond reach, because They might not be under the
UN protected government.
The UN protected government. And so clearly it will be a problem. But my last issue on this, I mean, apart from fixing the economy and try to create employment, Guy Standen provides a damning picture of what is happening to developing countries, especially third world countries in Africa. We are building the body of what he called precariat, that is those who have completed universities, training colleges, who we cannot employ. And the lumber precariat, those who have fallen off, they've no any degree, they have nothing. We've not even yet found employment for those who are otherwise qualified to work. How do we deal with those that the MPP called some time ago dog chain sellers? How do we deal with them? So the situation confronting us as a country is enormous. And that's why we must look at all available means to spur the economy, to create employment. Right. Because if not, people will continue to move. But what is happening, if the footages that we saw is anything to go by, then the guys who are doing that are engaged in gross human rights violations. And probably their end should be at the courts, ICC, for crimes against humanity. Clearly, that should not be tolerated. I'm saying this because I know that if the Europeans and African countries put their minds to that, they will find the people who are behind these atrocities.
African countries.
Well, what can I say? Because these are African. Because we also have some responsibility. Ace. We have some responsibility towards our people. Harm an American here, one American here, harm one American here, and the whole America will come after you. We should have that responsibility towards our citizens.
Interesting. And Kweku, are we leaving an aspect of this thing about their recruitment agencies? Some of them are actually recruiting people with promises to take them to these places to enjoy good life, and we are told of the stories, horrendous, about how girls particularly are suffering because of these things. And I don't know how we are regulating them, even though the law clearly prohibits, some of these things, as in human trafficking, and what ought to happen.
Yeah, good question. But see, let's find out first. The Ghanaians trapped in Libya, if I may say so.
Right.
Who are they? What are they? How did they get there? Are they part of a batch that were recruited by either licensed or unlicensed recruitment agents, or they went on their own? Okay, seeking greener pastures beyond.
And so far, we have heard stories of those
Libya.
who went on their own.
Yes, so that's migration. They may not have the proper documentation and things. You get trapped by
There are
countries.
few who talk about how they gathered, some dollars and had to give to some agents.
Yes, so that's why I want us to segment and begin to deal with the issue in that manner. Because those who went on their own didn't have authentic immigration documents and then were busted by a country's immigration service. We can only negotiate to bring them back home. But if there were those that were recruited by unlicensed recruitment agencies, and sent there and dumped the way they were dumped, those agencies, the law must deal with them. We have laws on those ones. Now, if they are recruited by the licensed recruitment agencies, they have obligations they are supposed to follow according to the law. If you are recruiting people into another jurisdiction, because it's allowed, but they have obligations, what to do, what not to do, how you follow up on them, and all the rest are done. So there's a mixer. I think it's a mixed bag of people who went on their own, some who might have been recruited by the licensed recruitment agencies, and those that were through the unlicensed route. Whatever it is, they are Ghanaians, they are in some dilemma, some danger, and it's our responsibility as a nation to try and bring them back to a comfort zone. So that's what I think the focus is now on. But because you see, it is not in all cases that we can apply the Human Trafficking Law Act that we have.
You're right.
That's the point I'm trying to make, that if we ought to draw that extension carefully. Then be from Libya, those who were being sold, those behind that enterprise, of course, are violating international law. There's the Palermo, protocol, which captures them too. And that ought to be, so there are different dimensions to it. But if it's majority of them went there as illegal immigrants, all we can do is to bring them back home. Then bringing them back home, to again, in the act, there is the issue of relocation, rehabilitation, reintegration. Do we have the capacity? Beautiful law.
We should have.
Yes, there's even a human trafficking fund as part of the act. And contributions are supposed to come from individuals, corporate entities, international organizations. I'm just asking a question. What is the status of what we have put down, the institution, the mechanism that we have put in place? Now we are challenged with these returnees. Question is, how do we handle them? How do we reintegrate them? So it's a very, very serious issue. Let's bring everybody back home if we can, through both our own efforts and in collaboration with other nations. But we must begin to look, apart from the socioeconomic things that propel this thing, also to look at the criminal elements who are involved and see that we can create a certain deterrence using the law that we have ourselves put in place. Otherwise, there isn't much that I can say.
Right. And talking about part of the efforts to discourage some of these things from going on. And our law prohibits these sorts of trafficking, and he speaks about money that's supposed to be available for the purposes of resettlement and so on. I'm reading in page 238 of Justice Dennis Ejay's book, which is the Contemporary Criminal Law in Ghana. And I described it earlier as the most comprehensive so far because it contains other things that you don't find in the criminal law, as in the code. It says that the punishment is for such persons to be put into prison for not less than 5 years. But beyond that, there is also the provision that we have a responsibility and a duty to inform the police about people who are engaged in some of these things. And in fact, if we don't, it says that a person who fails to inform the police with information about trafficking commits an offense and shall be liable upon a summary conviction to a fine of not less than 250 penalty units. A penalty unit is 12 Ghana cedis, or a term of imprisonment of not less than 12 months, or both the fine and imprisonment. And that, apart from reporting to the police, the law also says that, it says, inform the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, the Department of Social Welfare, the Legal Aid Board, or a reputable civil society organization. If we're doing some of these things, how can that assist to discourage what we are seeing now?
The law, beautifully written, sits on the statute books, not publicized. Justice Dennis writes this book, nobody will buy it. And so it sits in the books and nobody knows that we probably have the statute law that can help, if not stop it, limit it. But it's not known, it's not published, it's not publicized. Our focus as a nation is when the next scandal is going to happen. So we talk about it for 2 days and then we move on to the next one. We are often very bored when there's no scandal in the nation. We wait for the next one. Look, the issue of migration has push and pull factors. Let's start with the pull factors. They see Europe on TV. It's almost like there's gold on the streets. Europe is presented in very nice language and very nice pictures. Look, everybody there has a job, they have food to eat, clothes on their back, etc., etc. We miss out on the fact that it is not always what is presented to be. Then there are pull factors. They look at what they see on TV and in movies and look at their circumstances here. and say, wow, the only problem with me is my geographical location.
Yeah, that's true.
That if I were to be able to change my geographical location, I will be better off.
But isn't it surprising when you hear some of the money they are able to put together and give to agents?
Yes, it tells you how desperate we are.
They
think that it's a good investment because they've seen their brothers go and come back, and their sisters come back and show off stuff that they can only dream about. Now, look. So how do we get to Europe? By sea. So the whole concept of stowaways, where you hide in the belly of a ship and hope to jump out when you get to another country, and if you are caught, you are thrown overboard. It was in London not too long ago when a dead body fell from a plane. Somebody had gone into the belly of the plane where the wheel was. Of course, had died because there's no oxygen at that place. And the cold again. And so when the ties came out, about to land at Heathrow, a dead body fell from the plane, coming from West Africa. Yes. And then we have the land one, which is trans-Saharan. You pay, they don't like, some walk, some don't. They bought various vehicles, cross borders, and Libya had a specific attraction. You're right, it's west now. But even in the time of Muammar Gaddafi, West Africans were going to Libya in the hope of transiting. So they might spend some time working there. I have a very good friend from childhood who disappeared for years. The next we heard he was in Libya, hoping to get on a boat to Italy. And so there are push and pull factors, and sometimes they can tell which borders are tight and which are not because they are agents. They pay the monies. And so we have to look at all of this. They've been through arrests, harassment. It was going on. It's on a worst scale now.
Remember the Gambia, the Ghanaians who got busted.
Who got named Gambia. A lot of them are hoping to get into those places. Now, not too long ago, there are pictures of a Ghanaian being beheaded by ISIS, having been arrested somewhere in Libya. But now, because of the Libya has become a failed state, it is easier to go through there. And the fact of people dying across the Mediterranean is not a deterrent. It just shows you that, and is right. We have to fix our countries. We can't do anything about the pull factors. We can't order the Western world to become as poor as we are. We ought to do something about the push factors. And every West African citizen who tries this is a shame on West African governments. They have for years killed our economies, bought vehicles. Whenever somebody's on the throne, we see the amount of luxury vehicles he had in his. Now, some of these things will have made our people better, but rather we have used them to enrich ourselves. We should look at these things and see how are we going to fix our economies in such a way that the push factors will be limited. Unless and until we do that, they will tell us when to pass our laws legalizing safe sex, and our people will continue to trek on the Sahara for a better life. We need to fix this. And another thing, can we stop circulating two things? WhatsApp messages trying to recruit people are very dangerous. Some of them are pure scams. They take money from the people. Some of them feed into illegal migration. Some of them feed into this. And so the minute you see it, you send it to everybody on your WhatsApp group. Hey, if you are looking for a job, this is an email address to get to. Some of these things are dangerous. Can you stop forwarding them? Okay. Two, until the AU stands up and does something about this, not in mere talk. And I'm worried that it is France that's going to the UN Security Council on this matter. What is the AU doing? Until the AU is able to fix this, either through law or force, we should stop celebrating AU Day as a holiday now. In the 6 extremely rich African countries who celebrate it, only 6 celebrate AU Day as a holiday. Is it
today that some Ghanaians or so Africans in London are embarking on
there's a demonstration somewhere in London. There are 6 great African countries who have solved all their economic problems, and they are the only ones who celebrate AU Day. It's Ghana, Gambia, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and 2 others. Namibia and another. They solved all their economic problems to the extent that they can have a day of rest to respect the AU. Until the AU fixes this problem, those 6 countries should stop celebrating them. I know they are sufficiently rich to give a day off to celebrate the AU. The other countries, the poor countries like South Africa, Ethiopia, where the AU is seated, and Nigeria, do not mark it as a holiday. These extremely successful countries, the company of 6 celebrate as a holiday. Until the AU fixes this mess, we should stop celebrating that holiday.
Kwenka, do we have as a government on the back of this any plan to at least begin with the education, and to empower the people, as I read out, so that they can report some of these things? Somebody is sending me a message on Facebook and sending me a picture of his brother who has been arrested, and he says they lost contact with him a few days ago, and he just showed up. You can see he's tied up or something, and this guy must be devastated. They ought to know what the law says. The people that come recruiting and asking them to pay money, that we can target these people. If the state is also making successes in getting some of these people through prosecution, we should be able to tell the world about it so that, you know, we'll get to know that this is not what you ought to do. The fund that is supposed to accrue money to be used to settle these people, those who are involved, according to the law, when they are caught, they are supposed to give compensation. Those who are doing some of these things, they are supposed to give compensation. The state can get monies from them. Their properties can be confiscated and all of those, rather than the state finding way and monies to resettle these people.
See, Samson, I'll take it from the perspective of the horrifying pictures that we have actually seen. You see, yes, everybody else has decided to look at it from a holistic point of view and to suggest ways by which we can get out of it. But Samson, have you looked at some of the pictures? It just gives us a memory of what happened 200 years ago or something, and which by 1807 through to 1811, steps had been taken in other countries to abolish sin. And then after we attained independence in the various African countries and brought ourselves together as OAU and later to AU, and celebrating it with glamour and glee, this is what we are celebrating. Most unfortunate. I saw even one picture in which a very strongly built man tied a lady to a stake and then used his right foot right on the private part of the lady and pressed her against the stake. And she was wailing. Some people were tied head down. And these things are happening in the 21st century. And then every year, 53 countries in Africa, we meet as AU, talking about progress. I think I'll take it from the perspective of what His Excellency the President of the Republic of Ghana said when the outrage emerged.
Yeah.
He made a very strong statement that as AU, it's an indictment. The President said so. It's an indictment to AU. That after all the things that we say and do about as AU, this is happening live in Africa. You see, about 3 weeks ago, I represented the Attorney General in a program organized by the U.S. Embassy about trafficking of children and all that. And I could just see, after all these horrifying pictures emerged, that what we're seeking to fight in that were just the smaller fishes. The bigger ones are left off the hook.
Yeah.
But all these people who migrate to Libya and other places and face these horrifying things, you made a very strong point and a very relevant one at that. Some of them, I've seen that it is reported that some of them say they pay 6,000, others 10,000. My brother, people go for a loan of 10,000 cedis using their houses as collateral, and after a number of years with prudent management, they are rich people. You have that, yet you throw it in there just to become slaves. The orientation is a problem. But as Ace indicated, people go there and come back, and then they flaunt wealth. They are living in luxury cars, and they build houses, and everybody thinks that when you get there, you're going to have the same experience. And then it attracts people. You see,
Ani Osawote sends this message to say that is the reality. He says, trust me, these slavery images will not deter those who are determined to go. There's a BBC Panorama documentary, Europe or Die Trying. And most of those the project interviewed, especially here in Ghana, and he's been involved with the BBC, cared less about the harrowing experiences others had gone through trying to share in Europe's wealth. Our destinies are different. One guy told us, that's in quote, our destinies are different. One guy told us, it's sad, but that is the reality. They are not moved by these images.
You see, again, this is their orientation, and we will have to take time to be able to debrief such people, if I may put it that way, to let them understand that it is not as rosy as they think. But you see, again, His Excellency the President made a statement when he was in London. It was widely reported by one of the reporters, and I listened to him. He talked about the fact that we have to do things differently. You see, if you go to certain islands in Europe, They don't have the gold. They don't have the diamond. They don't have the manganese. They don't have the bauxite. They have no cocoa. They don't have the timber. They don't have oil. Yet we go to beg from them.
Maybe that's why we are begging from them. They don't have it, so they look for it.
Okay.
We have it, we don't value it.
Absolutely. Otherwise, what is the justification?
You see, we are
that after all these naturally endowed materials that we
I knew you were going to refer to the book.
after all these natural resources that we are endowed with, we go to die there.
Yes.
Not natural resources.
Yes, and that's one of the topics that Isankuma treats in his book.
Let me put this in perspective. There are also some of these countries that are putting our own Africans at the forefront of their development.
Of course.
Our own Africans, the brains that they are using there are some of our own people.
That's true.
Yes, that's a fact. So why can't we organize ourselves in such a way that these human resources are retained here to help us exploit these natural resources for our own benefit?
The politicians are too busy stealing.
This is the problem. And you have stated it. You see, sometimes, look, Samson, what is so painful is that some of these people, and sometimes you find some images of people sinking off the Mediterranean Sea. They sink. Thousands of people die every year. And yet somebody is stating that, look, it doesn't care. He will try it anyway. That is because we have made conditions here unattractive to retain such people. But the hell they go through there to be able to cross the Sahara and all that. Thousands of them die every year. Yes, I agree with Ace when he says that we need to look at our economic circumstances. They know, and then His Excellency the President has said that there's no reason why we should go cap in hand all the time begging. And you have made a very good point. Why, in the midst of sovereignty of states and respect for one another, a head of state will come and say that, look, don't think that we'll continue to treat you like we are colonial masters and all that. That was the height of insult.
Well,
I didn't know that that could happen. But I think that we need to, as a people, do something as politicians so that it does not become business as usual.
Right. And there are some of our viewers and listeners, particularly those listening from Europe, who say that this is a global problem and the country should look at it as such. A lot of education within the country will assist. Unity-Akufo-Addo also says that the foreign media will stop asking the question about gay or homosexual relations if our own people stop using such statements in claiming asylum.
he's right.
Of course, that's true.
In where
right.
they are.
He's
He's
right.
spot on.
Right. And this been our show for today. My outfit, as always, is supplied by Latida. And my guests have been Abdul Malik Kweku Bako, editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. Isankuma is a lawyer and has written this book. He wants you to read about brains develop a nation and not natural resources. Get it? And then Yunus Hussaini is the MP, Tamale Central, and ranking member, Legal, Constitutional and Parliamentary Affairs of Parliament. Joseph Dimdiok Pemka is MP Timpane and Deputy Attorney General and Minister of Justice. As you know, the biggest outdoor event in West Africa, or Africa actually, is going on now at the trade fair sites. That is Schools Reunion. We should be heading there and enjoy what is going on. Thank you very much. This has been Newsfile. I'm Samson Ladi Ayenini.